Hello, and welcome to today's virtual happy hour tour. I am Brenda Holt with the Arizona State Office of AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to families, to more than 100 million Americans 50 plus and their families, regarding health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. AARP also produces the nation's largest circulation publications, the AARP Magazine and the AARP Bulletin. During the months of November and December, AARP will focus to help you navigate the complicated healthcare system. Caregivers are frequently frustrated by their healthcare systems, from Medicare, insurance, and care coordination to inadequate healthcare staffing and medication management. We know helping your loved ones navigate their medical needs is hard. AARP is your wise friend, and we're here to provide support and guidance. We can also help assist with resources, expert content, and tools. Visit us at aarp.org/caregiving for more information. Thank you again, and I'll turn it over to Marshall.
Folks, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello and good evening. I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. Oh my gosh, it is indeed, in case you can't tell, our Christmas edition. And we're going to be talking about all kinds of fun stuff, but I want to welcome you all, no matter how you're watching, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, or even watching on YouTube as a prior episode or as a podcast. You can watch and listen and hear all about some cool Arizona history. And oh my gosh, have we got some great history for you tonight. So my name is Marshall Shore, and I am indeed the host of Arizona History Happy Hour. And so, I want to welcome you all for today is December 21st. And oh no, what happened? I must have deleted my slide. But anyway, so it may show up later on. We shall see. But on this date back in 1938, Grooms Creek near Prescott got its post office. That was actually the second time it got in a post office, but it was a small little town. And about once a month, they would host a square dance near the post office. And there was no babysitter in town, so parents would just take their children and lay them out on the long benches at the post office and let them sleep while they danced away. Now, also tonight is the winter solstice, which occurs about 8:30 tonight. So it'll be just after the show as we get ready for the shortest day of the year. Lots of darkness today, but we've got lots of light. So it is also National Coquito Day, which is a traditional Puerto Rican beverage. Now, a lot of people compare it to eggnog. And just like eggnog, there are so many different recipes, but it always calls for milk, cream of coconut, and Puerto Rican rum. Guess what I'm drinking tonight? But hold on to that thought. It is also National Crossword Puzzle Day, because on this date back in 1913, a journalist off in Liverpool created the first published crossword puzzle. And this Thursday, many of you may have gone to work and seen or have been a part of a holiday party, because today seems to be the most popular day for all of those parties. And it's considered to be re-gift day, because it's a day you can unload some of those unwanted gifts on an unsuspecting victim. So all right, so that's what's going on today for December 21st. Now, what can you expect from tonight? Well, we always do a little bit of Arizona music history. We have Little Arizona, about a small town. We've got some trivia. We've got a beverage, which you might already have a clue what it is. And of course, we have a special guest. And it's going to be such a fun episode. So my name is Marshall Shore. I'm also called the Hip Historian, which means I get to have fun with Arizona history. And so, and there we have the slide. See, I kept moving things around, and there you go. All right, so we won't need to go through that. But, if you didn't get your pie from McAlpine's, they're sold out. You'll have to wait till next Thanksgiving to get your pie. So, well worth it. So, also we have coming up January 5th and 6th, we have Arizona Unzipped at the Orpheum's 95th birthday party. Oh my gosh, and it's going to be so much fun. I know on Friday we've got Terry Goddard saying a few words. And you know what I think is really cool? We are going to have the Corona family attending. Now, they are the ones that actually saved the theater. They were managing it as a Mexican music and movie venue. And by the time the city realized, well, what a cool building this is. I'm so glad we didn't tear it down. So if it hadn't been for them, we would not have that amazing Orpheum Theater. So thank you, Alex and family. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see you. So it's going to be so much fun having you in the audience as we get to talk about so much history. Maybe even your history. We shall see. Now I see Deb. Thank you so much for finding the chat. Now, please feel free to join in that chat session as we go along. Also, if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on Facebook, Marshall Shore, Hip Historian, or Instagram, hip_historian, email hello@hiphistorian, or even my website, hiphistorian.com. You might notice there's a running theme in there. All right. And it would not be a happy hour without a beverage, and PJ keeps me in the know and lubricated. And so Coquito, which is Don Q coconut rum, evaporated milk, sweetened condensed milk, coconut cream, cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla. So, oh my gosh. So there's a lot packed in this little, and gave me the challenge of creating a festive rim around my glass. So indeed, I might wind up with coconut in my teeth or in my beard. We shall see how this goes. Nom, 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 nom. Oh, that's so good. Hey, Tammy, glad you can join us. So excited you're here. So now, okay, for a little Arizona with a Christmas episode and Christmas theme, I thought, there's only a few places in Arizona we can talk about. And so we are talking about Christmas, Arizona today. It is in Gila County, has a current population of 0, was founded back in 1902. And that is because some gentlemen tried to do a claim on it before that, but it was discovered to be on the San Carlos Reservation. And so on December 22nd, 1902, Theodore Roosevelt signed an executive order that shifted the mine into public access. So, news didn't travel very fast. And so it didn't get to them until Christmas Eve. They couldn't actually get and lay a claim on it until Christmas. Hence, that's why it is called Christmas. Now, they had a post office that was continually diluted with people wanting the postmark of Christmas. So much so, they shut the post office down. So today, I don't think you can even get to Christmas, Arizona. It looks like the road has been blocked for quite a while, but it still lives on as a little mining town that still has quite a story that lots of folks are telling this time of year. All right. So now is the time we actually get to hear from someone else other than just me. So I'm going to bring on my friend Jenny.
Hi.
Hello. My gosh, look at that wall behind you.
I know.
That's spectacular.
It's the whole reason I rented this apartment. I love it.
Indeed. So, Jenny, for folks who might not know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Jenny Kuller, and I have a vintage business called Redhead Sadie Vintage, and I've been in business for about 30 years. I specialize in vintage clothing for everybody, also vintage jewelry and accessories and whatever else I can lay my hands on. That's basically who I am. I've been in Arizona since 1987. I've come to really love the desert. I really have.
Wow, good. So how long have you been here?
Since 1987. So that's 33 years?
Wow,
Yeah.
very cool.
Yep.
All right. And so we've come up with some trivia for tonight. And so now our trivia is not like when you do bar trivia, where it's all about, hey, what bar do you go to? And all we care about is the answer. Here we actually get to share the history about it. So excited that you can all be here as we get ready for a super fun episode of history. Now, you can keep track of your trivia in the chat session. I know if Anita's watching, she's got a special notebook that she uses. It's all good. And you know what? No one's going to grade it other than you. So there you go. All right. They're all multiple choice. And let's get ready for question number 1. All right. What is an iconic dress popularized in Arizona called now? A, squaw dress, B, patio dress, C, fiesta set, or square dancing dress for D. Which one of those do you think is an iconic dress that was made popular right here in Arizona? And is pretty much what we're going to be talking about all night long. So, all right, moving on to question 2. These dresses appeared the same year as what event? A, Pluto is discovered at Lowell Observatory. B, Motorola builds the first plant in Phoenix. C, Route 66 is completed. Or D, Arizona population exceeds 1 million. What do you think was the event that happened that same year that those iconic dresses started showing up? All right. Question 3. Dolores Gonzalez was born where? Was it A, Tucson, Arizona, B, Sonora, Mexico, C, Gallup, New Mexico, or D, Cheney, Arizona? Where do you think Dolores Gonzalez was born? And if you don't know who Dolores Gonzalez is, you will find out very soon. All right. Question 4. What helped popularize these dresses? A, the Depression. B, improved sewing machines. C, invention of elastic. Or D, travel to the Southwest. What do you think popularized those dresses? And here we are at the halfway point, and this is a doozy of a question because question 5, in the mid-1950s, these dresses were estimated to bring how much money into the Arizona economy? Was it A, $500,000, B, $5 million, C, $8 million, or D, $15 million? Oh my gosh, any of those amounts are a huge amount, but only one of them is correct. Which one do you think it is? All right, question 6. Local artists like who got involved in designing textiles for Fuller Fabrics? Was it A, Harwood Steiger, B, Ted DeGrazia, C, Max Ernst, or D, Jackson Pollock? So which one of those artists do you think designed textiles for Fuller Fabrics and might have been used in a dress or 2 or 3? All right. Question 7. How did William Selb improve the manufacturing of these dresses? A, creates a pleater. B, better dyes. C, invented elastic. Or D, improved thread. All right. How do you think that one man changed the entire process of making those dresses? Question 8. The fad of the dresses slowed in the early 60s, but what social group continued wearing them? Was it A, the scooter drivers, B, square dancers, C, vintage bicyclists, or D, the National Organization for Women? Which one of those groups do you think carry the torch of these dresses? All right. Question 9. What magazine did Lloyd Kivanou show up in 1953? Was it A, Life magazine, B, Look magazine, C, Reader's Digest, or D, Vogue? All right. Question 10. How could you acquire one of these dresses today, right now? Well, not right now, but very soon. Maybe even one for the holidays. You want to dress up a bit. You know, we've got Christmas and New Year's coming up right around the corner. You could A, make it yourself, B, order a brand new dress, C, buy vintage, or D, all of the above. All right. So while you are locking in your final answers, we are going to take a little bit of an Arizona music break and talk about the Riverside Ballroom. Now, the Riverside Ballroom was a social event space that housed so many different styles of music. The dance hall was opened up around 1914. Now, it got demolished in a flood, kept burning down, but kept getting rebuilt. And eventually in the 80s, it kind of wound down. But it was famous for so much music. It also had a Hispanic night. It had a collegiate night. It had a black night at a time where that was unheard of for many venues. And so many amazing performers performed there. So, Jenny, have I missed anything so far?
No, I think you covered it. If you look up the address for the Riverside Ballroom now, it's basically the middle of an intersection by the 10 out in the South Phoenix area.
Wah, wah.
I know. It's really sad. There's absolutely no trace of it anymore. But, you know, there were huge, I mean, all the big bands toured there. I mean, Bob Wills and all the Western Swing guys, they all played there. It was a huge place. That in Madison Square Gardens in downtown Phoenix, which also is sadly gone.
Right. And for Madison Square Garden, there is that little museum in the corner of that building that doesn't really do it justice, but
no, that place needs like a whole book dedicated to it because it was a huge venue, and into the 80s punk bands, where it was a real popular thing to have punk rock bands in the 70s and 80s there.
And so many people performed at Riverside Ballroom, and including one of my favorites, Lalo Guerrero, the godfather of Chicano music. Now, also, he did so many parody songs. He also did a song called Poncho Claus.
That I didn't know. You got one up on me.
and so because we're kind of doing a little bit of fashion, I thought it'd be kind of fun to do this because Poncho Claus was turned into a book by Lalo's son, Dan. Oh. And he had a good friend of his, Bob Mackey, do the art.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I didn't know that.
So if you, after the show, not right now, if you go to Facebook, Marshall Hip Historian, you can see Louis Perez from Los Lobos reading Poncho Claus.
Oh my God.
So I did that just before the show started, so that way it would be there, because otherwise I might forget. But nice. It's there, so you can go watch it. Oh my gosh. All right. So now who's ready for some answers? All right. So what is an iconic dress popularized in Arizona called now?
Well, originally, as a lot of you might know, it was called a squaw dress. And we don't call them that anymore in the vintage world because squaw is a derogatory term for a Native American woman. So it's not something that we say. We say patio dress, fiesta dress. Some people refer to them still as square dancing dresses, but patio dress is definitely the accepted term for that.
Indeed. All right. And these dresses start to appear the same year as what event? And it is the year Motorola builds their first plant in Phoenix up on North Central. It wasn't that iconic building that, I hear they just put in for a permit to demo.
Oh, God,
So I know there's already kind of a little mounting group talking about other uses, but there you go. So
I hope they managed to save it. That's too bad. And that year was 1948, by the way.
oh, indeed, yes. I forgot to say that.
Yeah.
I got so excited that we're talking about the dresses. And I thought it was so interesting because both items, these dresses kind of coming in as well as Motorola, were huge economic factors for Arizona, which we'll get to later. I don't want to give anything away, but it was huge. All right. So question 3, Dolores Gonzalez was born where?
She was born in Sonora, Mexico in 1907, and she is credited with in pretty much popularizing and inventing the patio dress. No, like I said earlier, known as squaw dresses back then. So when you see the word squaw pop up on things, know that that's old branding and that's old advertising. So we don't say that anymore. Anyway, Dolores, her family moved to Douglas, Arizona in 1911. When she became older, she moved to California and she worked for a department store called Pfiffer's for about 17 years, doing window displays, designing. She was an incredibly creative woman. And she moved back to Tucson due to asthma issues. And she opened, actually, her sister opened a dress shop in 1938 on Stone Avenue in Tucson called Irene Page. And her brother, Dolores and her brother, Charles, they took over the shop in 1948 and they rebranded it as Dolores Resort Wear.
Wow. So, okay. So where did Dolores get the idea for the dresses?
Okay, so there's a lot of different styles that were borrowed to create her designs. Hopi, a lot of a Native American, like Hopi, Tohono O'odham, Navajo, Diné. It's a very simple design that she expounded upon endlessly. There's endless variations and styles that you can work from the basic design. So she was indigenous. She was, Hispanic, Mexican, actually, I'm sorry, Mexican. So she took all of these beautiful designs and made it her own. And in a time where, she was probably expected to just get married and have a whole passel of kids, she did actually get married. But the business was hers and her brother's, mostly hers. I think her brother was secondary. This was her business, which for 1948 is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that would have been kind of earth-breaking for so many folks to have a woman who had her own business and was being successful, making her own money.
Well, she also had 2 kids and she managed to raise a family and have this incredible business for many years. I'm not quite sure when her business when she went out of business. I'm going to guess it was probably the early 60s. But there was a woman in Tucson who had a department store, Peterson's.
Oh, yeah.
Celie Peterson or Seal Peterson. I don't know how to say it correctly, but Seal Peterson worked with Dolores Gonzalez quite a bit. You can ask Dave Temple down at Clever Vintage in Tucson more about that.
Indeed, we had him on talking about the department stores alone in Tucson. It was fascinating.
Yeah. No, Tucson was it was interesting back in mid-century. Tucson was really up and coming like Phoenix was. The whole state of Arizona really was post-war.
Indeed. All right, question 4. What helped popularize these dresses?
Sorry, the slide isn't coming up.
No, it was all the travel to the Southwest.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry. I knew that. Yeah. Post-World War II servicemen who had been here at Luke Air Force Base, who trained here, they found, that they found the climate and the area just fantastic, especially coming from back east, with cold winters and feet of snow, so a lot of them moved out here, and they became very community conscious. They wanted to celebrate, the area and bring tourists in. And so people coming out here, they saw these outfits, this clothing, and they were like, oh, I want that. I want to look like that. And plus, in the 50s, Western movies, well, the 40s and 50s, Western movies and Western TV shows were huge. So, these little girls and these the sub-debs, the young teenagers, what they used to call sub-debutantes, and their moms, it was a fun thing to have matching outfits for you and your daughters.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, people traveled out here, as I know you probably know more about that than I do, but the amount of tourism that was promoted out here post-war.
Yeah, it was like, you had people were taking flights for the first time for leisure, not just business, and people suddenly were taking those highways.
And Route 66 was definitely a big factor in that, as everybody knows.
Yeah, 80 and 60. There were so many highways and byways that became instrumental in getting people around.
Yep.
And people were coming to the Southwest in huge droves. A lot of times just like they used to, because of our amazing winters.
Yes.
You may have noticed today's a little warm.
Oh, the last few days have been beautiful, but it is definitely a little warm.
I was like, so no wonder it's like all those folks from Chicago or Maine are loving it here right now, because it's not sub-zero weather.
I know.
And I think it's so funny that it's like you would have had the entire, all the women wearing matching patio sets in a family.
It was definitely a thing. I've seen a lot of old family pictures, and I actually have a mother and daughter set that I acquired from a friend of mine recently, and they're not matching, but they're very complimentary, and they're absolutely adorable. I love the little girl sets. They're harder to find, but they're so sweet.
I'm like, oh my gosh, indeed.
Yes, I actually, I meant to get it so I could hold it up and show you, but I have a Barbie doll size patio dress, and I have another 1950s doll, like a 20-inch doll size patio dress as well.
You probably should take photos of especially the Barbie doll, because, the Art Museum in February on Valentine's Day is opening a Barbie exhibit.
Oh, seriously? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Due to the popularity of the movie, it was like they've opened up their schedule and kind of been moving things around. So they're going to have a big Barbie exhibit coming in.
Oh, that'll be so fun. That'll be wonderful. I've actually, I don't collect Barbie myself, but I have had thousands and thousands of pieces of Barbies, and also their vintage clothing up to about the mid-70s run through my hands over the years. I've had the Barbie Dream House. I've had a lot of stuff, and I usually let it go, because if I start getting into collecting Barbie, I'm just done.
Completely understand. There's something just can't go down that path.
I can let her go. As she runs through my hands, that's enough. It's okay.
Right. All right. So question 5, in the mid 1950s, these dresses were estimated to bring how much money into the Arizona economy? Yes.
It was estimated in about 1953 that the popularity of this part of the fashion industry alone was bringing about $8 million over the course of 2 years into the Arizona economy.
Okay, so was it just Dolores making these dresses?
No. Oh, no, that's a whole other part of this. These dresses were expensive back then. I looked it up, and a dress that was $50 back in the early 50s would be about $400 to $500 today. That's the inflation equivalent. And so there were lots and lots and lots of women, cottage industry type people, who were creating these dresses. You know, there were little independent dressmakers. If you look in the Arizona or the Phoenix City directory that the Arizona room at the library has, which everybody should go to because it's an amazing place. The Phoenix City directory shows, like, under dressmakers, there's probably 20 different people listed. And those are the ones that paid to have their names in the city directory in the phone book. We're not even talking about the women who were just independently making egg money, as it were, you know, making dresses for their friends, or, you know, for little boutiques. This was a way for just the average housewife to, you know, if she was talented, she could make a little bit of pocket money of her own. And, you know, in a time where women were not really pushed to be independent, you know, they wanted women at home. So, but this was a way that they could make a little extra money.
Wow. So this was truly a whole industry. I mean,
Oh.
it was like,
Yes. Yeah. There's countless labels, and eventually it actually branched out to Texas and Colorado. I've seen labels, lots of labels from New Mexico. Jeanette's of Albuquerque is one of the big labels from New Mexico that I've seen a lot. But I've seen so many homemade labels, and I've seen some with no labels. I mean, it's countless. I think Phoenix Originals by Norman of Arizona was one of the big ones here, other than Dolores. But there was Alpha Sportswear. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Sun Valley Sun Valley was one of the pictures that you showed.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And then also I remember it was like, wasn't there like a Luann's dress shop up in Central Plaza?
Yes.
And so it's now kind of etched in the sidewalk where you can see the name of that shop that was there, which I think is cool about Uptown Plaza.
Yes.
Continuing that history of where they came from.
Absolutely. So yeah, and you can't forget Thunderbird of Prescott. That Thunderbird was really big. They were really big. I have one of their catalogs from 1960, and it's just pure eye candy. And in fact, one of my treasures that I will never sell is an original from Thunderbird Fashions. It's gold and green, and it still has the original hang tag on it. It's never been worn.
Wow.
And that doesn't happen every day that I find something.
No, because I think these things were treasured and worn. And
they were definitely worn. I mean, if you went to like the Phoenix JC's rodeo back in the 50s, you definitely sported your Arizona pride and you wore your patio dress. Definitely.
So was it all one piece?
No, sometimes it was, you know, it was a dress, and then they would elasticize the waist. But mostly they were sets. It was a 2-piece set. Sometimes they would come with 2 blouses. Sometimes they would come with a shawl or a stole. I have one of those that I actually wore the night that you and I did the
Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona when we did that.
Grand.
Yeah, when we did that. Yeah. So there was it was. You know, the possibilities were endless. It really was. It's a basic design and style. You can just go crazy with it. And they did. They just, with printing fabric and mixing different prints when people would make them homemade. There's so much information. I can't even get it all out here, but I'll stop there because otherwise we'll be here for another hour.
All right. So question 6, local artist. Like who got involved in designing textiles for Fuller Fabrics?
That was Ted DeGrazia, and Fuller Fabrics was a huge manufacturer of custom fabrics. As you can see in the picture, the fabrics that he did were fantastic. I have never actually seen one in person. I'm always avidly looking for vintage fabric, and my fabric collection is huge, but you know what? I don't have anything like that, so I need to put that out in the universe. I need that fabric on the right with the little blue and red horses or whatever they are. Deer.
Yeah, I mean the little critters. I mean that is just so cool. Imagine that as one of those skirts,
or even that as like a panel in one of the tiers of the skirt. I mean that would be incredible.
Indeed. I mean, and these images came actually from his museum down in Tucson.
Oh, nice.
All right. So, question 7. How did William Selb improve the manufacturing of these dresses?
William Selb it's actually SELB.
I spelled it right the first time and then got it wrong the second time.
It's okay. It's all right. So, all right. I'm going to explain that picture on the left where it says an old butter knife is a boon to squaws. That is a clipping from an Arizona Days and Ways magazine, which was the Sunday supplement for the Arizona Republic for many, many years. It's dated 1961, I believe. But that woman, her name is Grace Norton, and she is pleating a dress using the pleater that Mr. William Selb invented about 1954-55. And the picture on the right is my backyard with my pleater that I found a number of years ago. It's a William Selb. I am almost completely sure that came from the dry cleaning business / pleating business that he opened in the mid-50s called Neat Pleat. And I know that because of the Phoenix City directory. It lists it under pleating services. He has his own category. It's really funny. Anyway, I pleated that skirt. In fact, there's a video on my Instagram from last May from when I was getting ready for an event in California, and I was showing how I pleat the skirts. But I mean, basically, your skirt has to be sopping wet, and you attach it by putting the skirt along the top on there with clothespins. And you have to remember when you're doing it that your fabric is fuller at the bottom. So you have to make a wider pleat at the bottom, and then you kind of need to just make it smaller as you go up. It takes me about an hour. And, in the summertime, it takes about 24 hours for it to dry. I have been told that back in the day when they were working at Neat Pleat that sometimes they would hang these over heaters. And in fact, my pleater has like a big thick wire on the top of it so that it can be hung. So I know it's really interesting, but Grace Norton in this article here, it talks about how square dancing clubs would send her or them like lots of skirts for her to pleat. So, again, she was making money doing this. I think she might have been an employee of William Selb. I think that's how she ended up with the pleater. So my pleater I got from a friend of mine up in Springerville, probably 10 years ago, maybe not quite that long ago, but she had no idea what it was. Well, she did and she didn't. And I told her I was looking for one. And she says, I think I found you one. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. And it's probably about 3.5, 4 feet tall. And it's all aluminum. And the thin ribs on the that you push the fabric into are flexible. So, and it won't rust because it's aluminum.
Oh, that's right.
So
which is important if it's going to be sitting on there for 24 hours while it dries.
Absolutely, because otherwise, it would stain your skirt with rust. So my pleater is very precious. I will never, ever get rid of it. But, I can pleat just about any skirt. I don't need to. It doesn't have to be a patio skirt. It can be any full skirt. I can do it.
Wow.
So there was definitely a learning curve when I was figuring this out.
And I think at the very end, I think I'm going to be able to show that video of you actually pleating.
Oh, cool. Nice. All right.
So, yeah. All right. So question 8, the fad of the dresses slowed in the early 60s. What group continued wearing them?
The square dancers, because those skirts are made of so much fabric that they twirl beautifully on the dance floor. And I know this because I twirl beautifully on the dance floor when I'm wearing one. So, they went out of favor about 1962, 62, 63. People were still making them, but it was definitely, things changed in the 60s as for just about everything. I have a friend, my friend Rita, who says that she was still making the square dance dresses, which the style was a bit more simple. They weren't quite as, I don't know, full of rickrack and ribbon, unless you wanted it that way. They were kind of plain, more functional, as opposed to, really elaborate. But she was doing that in the early 80s. She was making them for a boutique in the early 80s.
So was it okay? So I know with square dancing they would wear crinoline underneath to get the poof.
Yeah.
Were they doing that just like when you would go to the rodeo? Were you wearing crinolines under it as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it was fun to, have your skirt poofed out. It was beautiful. It was a style. I mean, the whole full skirt, the whole fit and flare style, where you have a fitted bodice, a defined waist, and a really full skirt, that goes back to Dior's new look from 1947, which,
Right.
Stayed in vogue until I think that like 63 or something like that. So yeah, the more petticoats, the better. I mean, that was the height of style. It was very ladylike too.
All right. Question 9. What magazine did Lloyd Kiva New show up in 1953?
That was the iconic Life magazine article that really started popularizing the style. Lloyd Kiva New contributed a lot to this style, popularizing the style. His fabrics were incredible. There's so many things that can be said about him. He was an amazing person, an amazing artist. He was the president emeritus of the International American Indian Arts, or
Right.
I can't remember the organization name, but it's something like that. It's very prestigious, but he started it in Scottsdale.
Right. Well, I mean, he had a shop in Scottsdale. I mean, he was really the first retail arts in Scottsdale.
Oh, yes. He was instrumental in getting the whole, and helping to gather together artisans, indigenous artisans in Scottsdale. Yeah, there's a lot that we owe Lloyd Kiva New, definitely, for that.
Indeed. I know last month there was a movie that was done about him. That was a documentary.
I know. They had it at the Scottsdale.
I went to the Western Museum. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a movie night. I wanted to go, but I was unable to. I know I really wanted to go because Robert Black had a bunch of his Lloyd Kiva collection on display there.
Indeed. And Lloyd Kiva's dress shop, actually art retail space is still around. It's now the restaurant F&B.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can kind of get a little peek into that. And so, okay, so did people just come here to buy the dresses?
Did they just come to Arizona?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Like I said earlier, there were shops in Texas and Colorado, New Mexico, California. I mean, Western.
So you say you're in New York. I mean,
you would go, well, actually, yes. I'm sorry. I missed, I forgot. Yes, Dolores actually had contracts with Neiman Marcus and Saks Fifth Avenue and Macy's. And they were very, they were in boutiques all over the place because the style was so iconic. It became iconic and fashionable in the 50s. Yeah, she had big accounts, she was shipping hundreds and thousands of dresses all over the country.
So how many staff did she have?
I think she had between 10 to 20 people at her peak. It was probably all indigenous, Hispanic women, sewing those dresses day after day, yards and yards and yards of gathering fabric. Dolores was very particular about her designs. She designed everything herself. Sometimes she would get out there on the floor and she would cut pieces. She would cut 12 patterns or 12, what is it? I've got this note. I've got this written down. She could cut as many as 12 garments at a time. And she was very, very fussy about her cotton. She only used Pima cottons. And considering the fact that, so many of her designs survive, her quality was up there. That's why you paid so much for her stuff, because it was really good. She had her trims and her ribbons and her rickrack imported from Europe. She would go on buying trips to Europe and she would go buy trims.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'm pretty sure that she closed up sometime in the 60s. I'm still researching that. Dolores passed away in 1994, and she's survived by, I think, at least one, I think her son. I'm not quite sure. Like I said, I still have more research to do.
Very cool. All right. So how could you go about acquiring one of these dresses? Say you wanted to get all dressed up for New Year's.
Well, there's lots of different things that you can do because so in the 80s, in the early 80s, there was a resurgence of 50s styles. And back in those days, you could go hit the thrift stores and probably find these dresses pretty easily. But nowadays, there's vintage shops that sell them. You can go on eBay, you can go on Etsy. It's just a matter of what your budget is. You can also make them yourself because there's a woman named Gertie. She has a line of patterns called Charm Patterns. You can find her on Instagram and Facebook. And one of her patterns lends itself very, very well to making this kind of dress. And if you make the basic style, then you can embellish it however you want to. You can add 10 rows of rickrack and ribbon if you want to. You can do whatever you want. Simplicity, I think a few years ago, they reproduced one of their patio dress patterns. You can find patterns again on eBay. I would suggest you look under patio dress, or some people still call them squaw dress, even though it's not a very nice term. But not everybody knows that. And one of my goals is to educate people not to use that term anymore. Or there are people who do make them. I have a friend in Oakland, California. Her Instagram is Annie Oakland, and she makes custom patio dresses, and they're absolutely beautiful. I've seen them in person, and her work is just impeccable. It's wonderful.
And what a great name.
Yeah. She's a pretty cool lady too. She's awesome.
It sounds like it. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I've made them too. I've made a couple for myself, a couple of skirts for myself. I've sometimes, you run into the problem that they're a little small because I guess maybe people were smaller back then. I've heard arguments both for and against that, but some of the sizes that you find are small. So one thing that you can do, you can add gussets to the undersides of the arms to make the blouses, a little bit bigger if you can find matching fabric. Or the other thing you can do if you want to wear the skirt is, since it's gathered, there's a lot of fabric in there, and you can take the waistband off, regather it, and make a waistband that fits you, and I've done that. I can't tell you how many times I've done that because I'm not a size 0. So I've managed to salvage a lot of things for myself, by altering them. And if you're okay with doing that, I think they deserve to be worn. So I think it's a beautiful style that it's very feminine. It's very pretty. And it's not a specific indigenous style. It is an amalgamation of many. So when it comes to cultural appropriation, I don't really think that's an issue. I had a long conversation with a friend of mine who is indigenous, and she and I really went over it because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't promoting something that was going to offend, any groups. And I don't think it is, because for one, it was an indigenous woman who pretty much created this particular style. And she took so many elements from so many places that it's not a specific, like a ceremonial dress.
Okay.
I mean, that's a subject I'm always learning more about, but that's pretty much my stance on that. I don't think, let me backtrack just a tiny bit, just a little bit. When Dolores was making these dresses, obviously they were made for the rich white ladies because that's who could afford them, or the more wealthy people, the people who could afford to travel, the women who could afford to go to Macy's Mezzanine and buy all these beautiful things. But I'm sure that a lot of those indigenous, the Mexican women who were making these, I'm sure they wore them as well. And, there's some colors that just look better on darker skin. There's some Hispanic ladies that I know that they're just kill it in some of those colors.
Indeed.
So anyway, sorry to kind of go on there, but
no, not at all. No, I mean, I think it's like, that's part of it is just that education, and you need people to realize that, terms change over time, new understandings.
Yeah.
And so,
but one thing, I mean, I love the fact that Dolores was an indigenous female, making a heck of a lot of money at a time where a lot of indigenous women were invisible. A lot of women were invisible back then,
Well, and opened up the gateway for so many other women to do the exact same thing, to be able to work from home, to be able to have their own income, separate from their husband. That was something outside of the norm of a secretary, a nurse, school teacher, those traditional female roles, to now suddenly having something that they can have a little bit more control of their lives.
Yes, absolutely. And I wish I wish I could meet could have met Dolores. Obviously, that's not possible, but she just seemed like such an amazing person, raising a family and running a business, even if it was with her brother. I'm sure she was the boss. I mean, from the articles that I've read, like old articles from the 50s, she was very strict. Her standards were very high. She was very, very fussy about things being perfect. And from what I've been able to gather from, looking inside her garments, they're very well made. They really are.
All right. Now, a topic you touched on earlier, we actually have a question. So Anders has a tough time or a hard time finding vintage clothing in larger sizes.
Yes, it is harder to find larger sizes. This is why a lot of people just learn how to make their own, or they have them made. My friend Annie, she kind of specializes in larger sizes, and she does beautiful work, and she's really reasonable. The thing about finding larger size vintage, I've been doing this for 30 years, and, I'm at the mercy of what I find, sadly. I wish I could just place an order with the great cosmic vintage gods and say, please drop all this plus size on me. You just have to keep hunting and get to know your dealers so that they will look out for you,
Well, I think, and you brought up a good idea about the fact you can alter it sometimes, either through gussets or other means, or there's also a lot of reproduction things out there that are actually, some of them are actually really good.
Some of them are actually really good. And, just because you buy something that only has one row of rickrack doesn't mean that you can't add 10 more.
You can always customize it yourself or have it tailored to fit you better.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it just depends on your budget, what you're willing to do. If you're serious about finding plus size vintage, Etsy actually is not a bad place. I know a lot of people who sell on Etsy, plus size, especially. When I can find it, I mean, I sell it very quickly, but if I don't keep it because I'm a slight plus size myself, but, it's the hunt. It's not like going to, the Gap and finding things to fit you right away. You have to think about it a bit more. And I'm not trying to sound all, high and mighty here, but it is a hunt. It definitely is. I understand.
Very much so. All right. So I always like to end asking people how they did. While people are tallying up their scores, we are going to take a look at that video you made of you actually making or using the pleater.
Good morning. So here we are in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. It's going to be 100 degrees today, and I'm getting ready for the Western swing out. And as you can see, I'm doing a little pleating today. So I wanted to show y'all, this is how we pleat a skirt, 1950s style, with the handy dandy pleater that was invented by William Selb in the 1950s. This, as you can see, is just an old bone letter opener. It's been worn down from years of pleating. So Anyway, here we go. We're going to take the fabric, go wide at the bottom, just tuck the fabric in there. Now, one thing you got to remember is that your skirt has to be sopping wet. And so since we're outside, it takes about 24 hours for this to dry, but I do have to keep getting it wet, and I also spray it with this. The way that they used to do it back in the old days is they would take the skirt sopping wet out of a tub of starch water. But I don't know how long some of these skirts are going to be stored, and starch has an organic element in it, and so I don't want these skirts to get eaten by boogies, because starch that contains cornstarch, quite literally, the buggies like to eat it and the fabric together. So anyway, it looks pretty nice, doesn't it? So you'll see this sweet girl swinging on the dance floor, hopefully at the Western Swing Out. See y'all soon.
Wow.
So that little bone thing, you told me that's a paper scorer. That I actually got that with the pleater. So who knows how long those two things have been together, but I do still have it, and I use it because it is the perfect tool for that.
Right, because it doesn't drag, it doesn't have any grip, it just slides right through.
Yep, and it's sturdy enough. It'll probably outlast me, my children, whoever ends up with the pleater.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So Jenny, okay, so you mentioned the Arizona room at the at Burton Bar Library. So what are some of the other resources that you use to find some of this stuff?
Well, I mean, there's actually a lot on the internet. You can go down rabbit holes when it comes to this kind of thing. I've searched out old newspapers at the Arizona room, the city directories, which are absolutely fascinating. I've been, like I said, I've been in the business 30 years. So I've been through many, many women's sewing rooms over the years. And my other job is doing estate sales. So I am that person that goes through every single little bit of paper to find, something that is valuable. Little bits of history is what I call them, I have so many. I do have a lot of resources. There's a wonderful article that was written by Dr. Nancy Perezzo in the Journal of Arizona History. Is that what it's called? Yeah. That's available. That whole history of that is available at the library, and you can't check them out. But if you have a few hours to just sit and read about all of these stories about Arizona history that nobody knows about, it's a gold mine. It's amazing. That Nancy Perezzo wrote a very extensive article about the history of patio dress fashion in Tucson and in Arizona. And I'm working up the courage to email her and ask her if I can meet up with her so we can talk about this. I'm just, she's like, I just really want to talk to her, and I'm just afraid she's going to say no, but I just have to do it.
Right. And she'll probably be so excited that someone else wants to talk.
Oh, I hope so, because her article is so amazing. But I started collecting bits and pieces of paper, old ads and old catalogs and anything related to patio dresses. I've got a little archive going, things that aren't on the internet, things that, would have gotten thrown away in the 70s or something. So, I've got quite an archive of things like that.
Indeed. Yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of the fun thing of, spending time at the Arizona room is because there's so many rabbit holes to go down about so much.
The last time I was there, I went through, I think, the entire publishing run of the South Phoenix Roundup, which was a local newspaper just for South Phoenix. Oh my God. It's amazing. It just, I want to go back and look at it all again, because it was such a different time, such a different world.
Right. And there's other, like, the Sunny Slope Historical Society had their own newsletter for Sunny Slope. So, and I don't think the library has those. So there's even pockets where you have gaps, but they're still around and still findable.
Oh yeah, no, I have so much more to learn, so much more to research. My plan is to write a book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I want to write a book about this. I don't know how to write a book. I don't know how to publish a book, but I've got all this information that I just want to talk about all the time. And it's like, I want to write a book about it. I think that people need to know who Dolores was more than just on the internet, and all the unsung, people that did all these dresses. I mean, if you've ever sat down to make a garment, it's amazing how much time it takes if you do it right. And these women spent hours and hours and hours of their lives creating these things, and I think they need to be honored.
Well, and the fact that it was such an economic engine at a point, I mean, that post-war where money was tight all around, and suddenly through these means they were able to help support their families.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's so many stories that need to be told when it comes to that. And when I post on some of the vintage Arizona groups about these periodically, the memories and the stories that come out. Oh, my grandmother made those, or my mother made those, or my aunt worked at a dress shop and made those and sewed on rickrack. I mean, there's a lot of stories out there. I need to gather them before these people are gone,
Right. Very much so. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your research, your passion for fashion, and I love the fact that it was like Motorola and patio sets came out the same year. I mean, these huge economic engines, both for women. I mean, Motorola was huge in terms of employing women at a fair wage.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. There's some roots of feminism going on there. It just took a long time for it to really bloom, but it was definitely there. But thank you for having me. This has been really fun.
I agree. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in person.
I know. Hopefully soon.
I hope so as well. All right, Jenny, have a great rest of your night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh my gosh, that was, thank you so much. That was pretty amazing. And so, From the Vault is something you might drive by, but so we are going to talk a little bit about up on Bell and Scottsdale Road. There is the Frank Lloyd Wright Spire. Now, this was initially Frank Lloyd Wright designed the Oasis, which was a Capitol complex that never got built. It wasn't asked for. He decided that he knew better. And so this is kind of a riff on that. And so for the holidays, they try. So not only does it have presents on it, but now it is an elf on a spire, which I don't know quite. It's not on a shelf, but so there you go. So if you're driving around Scottsdale, you might want to swing by just because of the kitsch factor of seeing an elf on top of this Frank Lloyd Wright-esque spire. So there you go. And I forgot I even included that. So yeah, so there is the spires, and so there is the Oasis that he wanted to build, but it never got further than a model that was made. And so, all right. So now you'll see why I always say, if you're watching on Facebook, click on that share button, because see how much fun we are having with Arizona history. Now, as we get ready to say goodnight, we are going to show a film clip that would have been shown before movies about Western fashion. Oh my gosh. Okay. So next week just before New Year's, we're having Sherry, who has an amazing website of Arizona postcards that she's been collecting. And she likes to find ones that have already been written on and try to track those people down. And so that's going to be such a fun way to kind of wrap up 2023 and share some Arizona love. So that will be one not to miss. I mean, and she is so passionate and finding these things. So that's going to be such a fun show. And so I always love to hear from you. So please reach out and let me know if you have questions, suggestions, comments. I love to give a shout out to Chris and Cole, who did that great video at the beginning, and always PJ. I mean, who knew? My coquito is almost gone. Oh, darn. All right. So now we are going to watch Western Fashions from the Library of Congress.
Easterner Marianne, arriving in Phoenix for an Arizona vacation, is greeted by Joyce, who is wearing a typical Western squaw dress from the Arizona Fashion Council. After shopping in nearby Scottsdale, Marianne models her own squaw dress with mandarin neckline. Now, off to Camelback Inn, nestled in Arizona's Valley of the Sun. For traveling, squaw dresses are pretty and practical. After washing, the full skirt can be pleated by just drying it in a stocking. Strolling Camelback's grounds, Joyce wears a one-piece outfit with an off-the-shoulder neckline. Marianne's two-tone skirt and blouse is trimmed with ball fringe and has a bow at the neckline. The call of the wide open spaces beckons the girls to the corral. Marianne wears a typical Western outfit, frontier pants, cotton blouse, and Stetson hat. Joyce models an overblouse of velvet, patterned after those worn by the Indian princesses who long ago rode here in the Valley of the Sun.
So I do want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, and I will see you all next week. So thank you so much for being here, and have a great rest of your night.